Your direct deposit didn't go through again, I muttered to Jeff from accounting, already knowing the answer before I hit send. Payroll error hash 47 this quarter. It was always Jeff, and it was always me fixing it. Every office has one of us, the quiet mop crew for bureaucratic sewage. I was the compliance lady, HR's human aspirin, payroll's duct tape. My name's Sharon, and for 18 years, I was the one who made sure this entire damn place didn't collapse under its own incompetence. Contractors classified correctly? Me. Overtime logged and compliant? Me. Annual labor report submitted by deadline? You guessed it, me, again, with a cup of stale office coffee and a migraine. I didn't go to the happy hours. I didn't bake cupcakes for Brenda's birthday. But when your tax forms went missing or your benefits enrollment glitched, I was the ghost in the machine who made it all better. No applause. Just another Slack message that ended in, "Thanks, Sharon. You're a lifesaver," as if I hadn't also just pulled the company out of another minor legal sinkhole. But on paper, my title was Operations Associate Roman 2. That Roman 2 was a promotion after my 5th year. No raise came with it, just more responsibilities and the privilege of mentoring a 23-year-old intern who once asked me if a W-2 was the one with the stock options. Hey, real quick before we dive deeper, 90% of you listen to these stories without hitting subscribe. If you've ever been Operations Associate EI'd by life, go ahead and click that button. Toss us a like while you're at it. It seriously keeps this whole operation from collapsing harder than Jeff's payroll script. Back to the regularly scheduled program. My office was a windowless cave between the supply closet and the microwave that always smelled like burnt popcorn and failed ambitions. But it was mine. I had a plant named Deborah and a filing system that could rival NASA launch logs. I didn't need a corner office. I had legal codes, labor memos, and the knowledge that if anyone ever really looked under the hood of this place, I'd be the only reason the engine hadn't exploded. And then, the meeting. No warning. Just a vague Outlook invite titled Quick Sync HR and Ops. The kind of subject line that smells like death in sensible heels. I walked in and found Marla from HR already seated, lips pursed like she was trying to keep a secret from escaping her buttocks. "Sharon," she said, too brightly, "I want to thank you for your years of service." Ah, so it was that kind of meeting. "We've been doing some strategic restructuring," she continued, reading from a script like a hostage trying to appease terrorists. "And unfortunately, your position has been deemed redundant." I stared at her, blinking slowly. "Redundant," I repeated, as if the word might mean something different in Marlaise. "We truly believe this will be a positive pivot for you," she chirped. "Like I just want a damn cruise. You'll land on your feet. And of course, we're doing you a favor by providing a modest severance package." I didn't throw the stapler. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. Because the moment she said favor, something shifted. See, when someone frames your termination as a kindness, what they're really doing is gaslighting you with a smile. And when your entire job has been documenting every comma of labor law compliance, well, let's just say I don't take favors lightly. I nodded, politely, professionally, and walked out of that room with the same expression I wore when fixing Jeff's broken payroll for the 3rd time that month. But in my chest, oh honey, a storm was brewing. And it was made of 7 years' worth of spreadsheets, audit trails, and one very, very well-written state labor board contact email. The fluorescent lights in the HR conference room buzzed like a dying fly, the kind of room where dreams go to get laminated, filed, and quietly euthanized. There were no chairs on my side of the table. Just Marla and that smug little HR intern she was mentoring, both perched like vultures on ergonomic thrones. A box of tissues sat between us like a peace offering, or maybe a dare. "Sharon," Marla began, clasping her hands like a kindergarten teacher breaking bad news about the class hamster. "You've been such a valuable part of our operations team over the years." That "over the years" hit like a dart dipped in NY quill. "We want you to know," she continued, "this isn't personal. It's about efficiency, strategic optimization. Frankly, this is a favor, a favor." She said it again, slower this time, like she was gifting me something shiny and rare. "You'll have the chance to explore new opportunities," she chirped. "I've seen your work. You'll land on your feet." Land on my feet? Lady, I've been holding your feet out of legal fire since the Bush administration. I didn't ask about severance. I didn't ask about Cobra. I didn't ask why Jeff from accounting, who once tried to expense his Vegas wedding as a vendor summit, still had a job. I just looked at her, nodded once, and said, "Understood." It was the kind of understood that should come with a warning label. The intern smiled like she just witnessed girlboss history, handed me a slim manila envelope, exit packet, probably pilfered from a Staples clearance bin, and sent me on my way. No security escort, no public goodbye, not even an awkward clap from the marketing team. I guess when you're invisible long enough, even your erasure goes unnoticed. Back at my desk, I unplugged Deborah the plant's little LED grow lamp, tucked her under my arm, and walked out without ceremony. No cardboard box, no looking back. Just me, Deborah, and 18 years of professional courtesy being euthanized in real time. Then came the follow-up email. Subject: "Thank you again, final HR summary." That smiley face at the end? That was the knife twist. The body of the email read like it had been AI generated by a sociopath. Paragraphs of legalese masquerading as kindness. A bullet point list of next steps written in Comic Sans level cheer. And at the bottom, we're so proud to have had you as part of the team. Please take this time to rest, reflect, and refocus. Rest, reflect. Lady, I am the reason your misclassified contractors haven't burned this company to the ground. I'm the reason your exempt/non-exempt grid doesn't read like Mad Libs. And you want me to rest. No mention of transition support. No real explanation. Just a link to a third-party exit survey, which I can only assume routed directly into an unmonitored abyss labeled feedback nobody reads, and an invitation to connect on LinkedIn. Oh, and there it was, buried in paragraph 4 like a landmine. We appreciate your understanding as we continue to align our operational strategy with long-term growth initiatives. That's code for, we had to pick someone to fire, and you weren't enough of a squeaky wheel to fight back. They thought they could dump me like an expired yogurt cup and move on with their lives. But here's the thing about yogurt, when it turns, it smells. And buddy, I was about to make this whole damn fridge reek. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was devastated, please. I've cried harder over discontinued shampoo. No, this was something different. Cold, focused, clinical. The same mental state I enter when reconciling payroll discrepancies for 3 departments that forgot timecard deadlines exist. That mode where you don't blink, you document. I woke up at 6:15 sharp, brewed my usual pot of bitter-ass Folgers, and fed Deborah 3 ice cubes like always. Then I opened my laptop like a surgeon prepping for an autopsy. There it was. Marla's email, glowing with smug finality. The phrase strategic redundancy nestled beside positive transition. She'd even attached a PDF titled Voluntary Separation Overview. Voluntary, my left foot. I half expected to find a confetti GIF embedded in the header. I reread it 3 times, not for emotion, those were locked in the basement, but to study the phrasing. And there it was. The line that made my eyebrow twitch in perfect alignment with Labor Code violation 411.13b. Due to Sharon's exempt status, no additional compensation for accrued overtime is necessary under company policy. Oh, sweet summer child. The problem with laying off your in-house compliance shadow is that she knows where you buried the bodies. And more importantly, she knows what constitutes an unclaimed wage under Ohio Revised Code and what qualifies as misclassification due to operational blending. I'd written training decks on this, so I clicked reply. Typed 4 words, thank you for the clarification. And then, like seasoning a perfect roast, I added one more detail. CC, State Labor Board Wage and Hour Division. Not a rant, not a manifesto. Just a gentle nudge from a woman who has spent nearly 2 decades wrapping incompetence in acceptable formatting. My message wasn't a complaint. It was a request for verification of employer policy regarding exempt status in layoff situations involving accrued overtime. Neutral, professional. The kind of language that makes bureaucrats perk up like bloodhounds catching a whiff of misfiled tax returns. I didn't click send right away. I took a sip of my coffee. Burnt, stale, beautiful. Then I looked at Deborah, said you ready, girl, and hit send. There it went off into the cloud. One email. A paper trail missile with a warhead made of policy citations and polite punctuation. And I'll admit it, I smiled, just a twitch. A corner of the mouth curl that felt like flipping someone off in Morse code. See, they were expecting the usual script. Panic, groveling, maybe some quiet tears or a snarky exit tweet. But I'm not built for dramatics. I'm built for procedures. I don't light matches, I file paperwork. But you'd be amazed what a properly filed document can ignite. By 9:52 a.m., I had a reply from the Labor Board's intake system. Your inquiry has been received. A representative may contact you for clarification regarding employer policy and classification practices. Short, dry, but I knew what it meant. Somewhere in a dusty Columbus government office, a case file with my name was now labeled pending review. And that's when I knew I hadn't burned the bridge. I just handed the arsonist a copy of the fire code with a sticky note that said, check page 14. It started with a read receipt. 9:53 a.m. Marla S. opened your email. That's the thing about professional courtesy, it leaves a paper trail thick enough to strangle someone. And Marla. She read that email faster than she's ever read a resume. I pictured her sipping a green juice she didn't like and blinking as she reread my message, trying to decide if it was a threat or just another bureaucratic cough. By 10:06 a.m., I got the first whiff of tension. A forwarded message popped up in my inbox. Someone had hit reply all by mistake and looped me into the nervous chain. A short email from Marla to someone named Dennis in legal. Can we confirm whether she's eligible for overtime recapture under exempt classification? Also, why would she CC the labor board? Sweetheart, if you have to ask that in writing, you're already on fire. I didn't reply, obviously. You don't interrupt a storm once the lightning started warming up. At 10:31, another message flew in, this time from Dennis to a wider group. I wasn't on the to line this time, but I had been BCC'd by someone anonymous. Maybe one of the marketing interns I'd once helped fix a messed up tax form. Loyalty comes in weird flavors. Dennis wrote, "Please review Sharon M.'s inquiry. It appears she's flagged potential classification errors. If the labor board follows up, we may be required to provide 7 years of audit documentation." That's when it happened. Someone CC'd the CFO. Officially. Was it just looping in Ben for visibility note? But in HR land, CCing the CFO is the equivalent of screaming into a bullhorn in a church. Ben, the CFO, didn't reply. Of course he didn't. People like Ben don't email, they summon. But you could feel the shift in the room even from my couch, like a sudden pressure drop before a tornado. I imagined Marla turning a little pale, her lipstick looking suddenly too bright. She probably pulled her laptop closer, whispering shit between clenched teeth, while the HR intern offered her chamomile tea and bad advice. By noon, I saw the internal gears start grinding. A company-wide reminder went out from HR. As a best practice, please remember that employment-related communications should remain confidential and internal. Any outreach to external agencies may result in misunderstandings or misrepresentations of company policy. A passive-aggressive haymaker if I've ever seen one. Translation, don't be like Sharon. But here's the kicker: I hadn't reached out. I'd simply asked a question. I'd used their language, their phrasing, their rules, and the best part, they knew it. They were rattled not because I'd burned anything down, because I'd lit a candle and placed it next to a box labeled improperly labeled contractors, 2017-2022. The dominoes were wobbling now, not falling, not yet, but you could hear the hush in the emails, shorter sentences, careful commas. People who normally signed off with cheers now just said regards. I refreshed my inbox every 10 minutes that day, not because I was anxious, but because I knew what was coming. I'd seen this script play out before with other companies, other HR departments. I just never thought I'd be the one teeing up the opening scene. By 3:20 p.m., someone in finance had looped in payroll with the subject line urgent, contractor archive audit start date 2016. That's the problem with 7 years of skeletons. Once you open the closet door, they all tumble out, wearing name badges and holding expense reports. By the next morning, it was no longer a whisper. It was a full-blown office cold front rolling through Slack channels and hallway corners like a storm everyone saw coming but pretended might pass. I wasn't there anymore officially. But my inbox wasn't dead, just off-grid. Friends still pinged me from their personal emails. Quiet subject lines like, "Ooh, and what did you do?" started rolling in before 9 a.m. One even attached a blurry screenshot of a whiteboard in conference room, C with the phrase payroll audit prep, scrawled in red expo marker like a murder scene clue. Apparently, finance had been summoned to pull all overtime logs dating back to 2016. Not a request, a command, with external review stamped in bold on the memo. Someone from legal was already combing through contractor agreements, muttering something about gray area thresholds and liability exposure. Word had it Jeff from accounting, the same Jeff who once categorized a casino charge as a client engagement opportunity, was on his third breakdown of the day. At one point, he allegedly shouted, "What the hell is a 1099B2 modifier?" before being escorted into the break room with a juice box. I just sat at home in my robe, sipping microwaved coffee, and watching the flames rise like a porch pyromaniac in curlers. I didn't say a word, didn't post, didn't respond. Just read, smiled, and kept refreshing. Then HR sent the email. Subject, friendly reminder internal confidentiality policy. Oh, honey, the body was pure panic perfume. You could smell the sweat behind every sentence. As we navigate a period of strategic review, we kindly remind all employees to refrain from discussing internal compliance activities externally or via unofficial channels. Please do not speculate or engage in workplace gossip regarding ongoing procedural evaluations. Remember, professionalism means protecting your team, even when transitions are challenging. Translated, everyone shut up before Sharon's email turns into an inquisition. I could hear Marla typing it, probably with two HR associates standing over her shoulder asking if it was too passive-aggressive or not threatening enough. Too late. You can't unwobble dominoes. One of my old teammates from operations, Carla, bless her blunt heart, texted me. People are saying they're auditing all manager timesheets, even Ralph's. Dude hasn't worked a full Friday since Obama. Ralph, the director of something vague and loud. If they were digging into his hours, the claws were out. Even better, my email, the one with the gentle thank you for the clarification, had apparently been printed and taped to the inside of the HR office door like a haunted talisman. According to the grapevine, it was now referred to in hushed tones as the trigger. I didn't need to say a thing, didn't need to expose anyone. They were doing it all by themselves. Every panicked reply, every overreaction, every late-night request for archived onboarding paperwork just painted the target bigger and brighter for the labor board. It's funny, really. They spent years ignoring my emails, skipping my training decks, brushing off my flagged issues as not urgent. But now, Now the whole office was scrambling through 7 years of digital lint I'd quietly kept lintrollered and categorized by fiscal quarter. I never shouted. I never swore. I just hit CC. The formal letter from the labor board landed at 10:12 a.m. on a Wednesday, signed and timestamped. It wasn't dramatic. No sirens. No agents kicking down doors in aviators and windbreakers. Just a single PDF with 2 pages of polite devastation, an official request for 7 full years of payroll documentation, including timekeeping logs, overtime policies, contractor records, and classification audits. It arrived in the company's shared legal inbox. Within 20 minutes, it had been forwarded to the CFO. 10 minutes after that, the CFO's assistant, poor Emily, was seen sprinting down the hallway carrying a cardboard file box labeled 2017 Payroll Q4, incomplete. A second-hand report from my mole in procurement said she tripped over someone's ergonomic footrest and still didn't let go of the box. True professionals know when they're carrying the holy grail of corporate screw-ups. Meanwhile, Slack channels were silent, like someone had poured cement into the servers. The same people who used to drop popcorn gifs and dad jokes every other hour suddenly went dark. Not even the marketing girl who posted Motivational Mondays dared share a sunrise quote. At 1:47 p.m., I got a message from Carla. So, they're pulling everything, like everything, even old contractor contracts from 2016. People are freaking. What did you do? I typed, just asked for clarification. Then stared at the blinking cursor, backspaced, rewrote, finally sent, didn't do anything. They're just answering their own questions now, because that's the thing, they weren't reacting to an accusation. There was no whistle blown, no lawsuit, just an inquiry, a benign, professional inquiry about exempt status and how the company chose to apply policy to my termination. The paper cuts were all self-inflicted. By Thursday, they were holding urgent alignment syncs. 3 a day, legal, finance, HR, each hosting their own little panic potluck. The CFO, Ben, hadn't been seen in public since the PDF hit. Rumor was he'd moved his office hours to 7 o'clock a.m. to avoid being cornered. Rumor also was he was already reaching out to external auditors to get ahead of the situation. My favorite whisper? That someone from IT had been asked to find out what files Sharon had access to in her final month. As if I'd planted some digital bomb. As if I hadn't spent nearly 2 decades organizing their records for them. A quiet buzz rippled through LinkedIn that afternoon, former coworkers connecting, liking old posts of mine, re-endorsing skills like regulatory policy oversight and risk mitigation. It was like watching people lay down flowers on a tombstone while also nervously updating their resumes. One guy from marketing, Dylan, who once called me spreadsheet sorceress in a department trivia game, DM'd me. Honestly, it's kinda epic. They underestimated the quiet one. The office is melting. I didn't gloat, not publicly, not in my messages, not even in my. There was something deeply satisfying about sitting in sweatpants, sipping chamomile tea, and knowing that the thing unraveling their entire operational facade was not a vendetta. It was a question, a CC, a smile typed in 4 words. I didn't yell, didn't sabotage, didn't call the press or storm the gates. I simply asked the system to do what it promises to do, review, verify, and respond. And now the system was knocking. It was Friday, 8:03 a.m. sharp, and Marla's name reappeared in my inbox like a bad rash returning after a hopeful cream. The subject line was as brittle as her voice had been in that sterile conference room. Quick clarification, Recent communications, smiling face with smiling eyes, with that same damn smiley face, like punctuation could soften legal exposure. I didn't open it right away. I was watering Deborah, rearranging my spice rack, deciding if I had the emotional bandwidth to open a message from the woman who'd handed me a severance packet like it was a Starbucks coupon. At 8:17, my phone buzzed, blocked number. I let it ring, twice. By the third call, I answered, if only to keep it from interrupting my peace. I didn't say anything, just let the silence stretch, let them blink first. Sharon, hi, it's Marla from HR. I hope you're doing well. Her voice was sticky with forced cheer, like honey that had turned. Pause, wait for it, we just wanted to touch base and clear up some. Confusion surrounding your recent email to the labor board. There it was, the mask slipping just a bit. She rushed ahead, clearly rehearsed. It seems there may have been some misunderstanding. We're concerned that this may be viewed as a formal complaint, which could trigger unnecessary escalation. Unnecessary escalation. The words clinked out like wine glasses at a funeral. Took a sip of my coffee. Let the silence breathe. Let her stew in it. Then I said, calm as a monk in a thunderstorm, I didn't file a complaint. She stammered. Well, I mean, technically you CC'd, correct, I interrupted. I CC'd the labor board on a clarification email regarding exempt status policy as outlined in your own termination language. I was just following up on your phrasing, seeking clarity. I could practically hear her blinking. Well, it's just that. The audit is creating a lot of stress internally, and some departments feel, I didn't do anything, Marla, I said, not angry. Just even, sharpened with the quiet authority of someone who no longer needed the job, the title, or the approval. If there's stress, it's probably coming from years of misclassification and record-keeping issues. That's not my doing. That's your documentation. Another silence. Longer this time. I imagined her at her desk, staring down at her own policies and trying to figure out where exactly she lost control. Spoiler alert, it was when she underestimated someone who read every line, every clause, and never forgot a single comma. Marla cleared her throat, voice smaller now. If you're willing to retract the inquiry formally, we'd be happy to revisit your severance package. Perhaps include outplacement support, maybe even extend COBRA beyond the minimum requirement. I almost laughed, almost, but instead I said that's generous. But I'm not negotiating. I'm not involved anymore. I just asked a question. Everything else is between you and the state of Ohio now. Click, no rage, no raised voice. Just a soft dial tone and a woman with nothing to lose and a hard drive full of backup logs. They'd spent years teaching me to be quiet, to stay in my lane, to play nice in spreadsheets while the boys upstairs made messes I had to sanitize. And now they were calling me, hoping I'd be the one to make the storm stop. But here's the thing about storms, they don't negotiate with umbrellas. The announcement came Monday morning, delivered with bureaucratic precision in an email from the Labor Board's regional office. Pursuant to the inquiry received and subsequent documentation provided, our team will be conducting an on-site payroll and classification audit at your facility beginning this Thursday at 9 a.m. It hit inboxes like a depth charge. By 9:07 a.m., my phone was already buzzing. They're sending auditors, Carla messaged. The real ones, with badges and everything. I didn't reply. I just poured my coffee, dark roast, splash of oat milk, and settled into the recliner I used to call my sick day throne. Deborah basked in her little pool of sun. I opened the local news site out of curiosity, half expecting to see the company already on fire. Inside the office, though it was fire, just the quiet, suffocating kind. The kind that doesn't burn desks, just dignity. According to whispers, the CEO had called an emergency leadership huddle, which was corporate speak for oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Half the executives showed up late, clutching coffee and bad excuses. The CFO reportedly looked like he hadn't slept in days. His assistant was seen dragging in a wheeled crate full of old HR binders, some still labeled in faded Sharpie from 2015. The whispers turned into fog. Ben was on the phone with outside counsel before the meeting even ended. Legal had summoned a labor specialist from the firm's Columbus office. People began avoiding eye contact in the break room. Slack channels renamed themselves from cheerful department nicknames to cryptic strings like #policy-review-thread and #urgent-doc-dump. Someone told me, off the record of course, that Marla had been pulled aside by the CEO himself. No witnesses, just 10 minutes in conference room B with the blinds closed. She emerged with mascara smudged and a post-it stuck to her heel. That's how you know things are real in HR. When the eye makeup runs and nobody says a word about it. The audit scope was massive. 7 years of back pay, misclassification exposure, failure to track accrued overtime for exempt employees who were regularly required to respond after hours. Contractors who were functionally full-time staff without benefits or proper paperwork. Missing I-9s. Phantom vacation hours, and that old skeleton in the closet, the intern-turned associate who was quietly let go in 2018 after threatening to go to the state. They never documented that properly. Guess who still had the receipts? Hi, it me. By Tuesday, execs were holding conference calls behind closed doors that lasted for hours. Lights on late into the night. Food delivery bags stacked outside corner offices like tributes to fallen leadership. Someone from payroll apparently had a panic attack in the bathroom after being asked for everything you have from 2016 forward, including calendar notes. Meanwhile, I was on my second cup of coffee. No milk this time. Just black and smooth the way you take it when the taste of victory doesn't need sugar. I didn't post anything, didn't brag, didn't send a single smug thinking of you meme, because this wasn't about revenge, it was about precision. I'd done nothing but click CC. But that CC had become the heartbeat of a reckoning built out of neglected compliance decks, ignored emails, and the quiet woman with a desk next to the supply closet, who watched everything, remembered everything, and smiled when you said it's not a big deal. Turns out it was a big deal. And now, the whole damn building was shaking. The call came at 6:42 p.m. I was halfway through folding a basket of towels when my phone buzzed, lighting up with a number I hadn't seen since the last time someone tried to schedule a quick sync with no agenda. I stared at the screen for a second, not because I didn't recognize the number. Oh, I knew it, but because I wanted to finish folding the damn towels. 2 more rings. I let it go to voicemail. Then, curiosity, or maybe just the itch to witness history, got the better of me. I called back. Hello? I said, folding the last towel with one hand. There was a pause on the other end, the kind that drips with the weight of unspoken panic. Sharon, it was Ben, the CFO, the same man who once ignored a 30-page compliance memo I wrote by asking his assistant to summarize it in bullet points. His voice had cracked at the end of my name. Yes, I said, as neutrally as if I were answering a call from my dentist. I just got an update, he said, his voice low like someone might be listening. From the labor board, it's a full payroll audit. 7 years, they want everything, not just forms. Meeting notes, emails, calendars. I waited, no rush, let him get there on his own. They're looking into misclassification, he continued, and retroactive overtime. And someone mentioned contractor misalignment thresholds, and they referenced your name on the original communication. Your clarification. He said it like the word itself burned his tongue. And then the question came, soft, broken, terrified. Why did I just get a notice of a full payroll audit going back 7 years? I didn't change my tone. I didn't gloat. I didn't even clear my throat. I just said, I simply sent the records for clarification. No emotion. The silence on the other end wasn't quiet. It was loud with realization. The kind of silence that hangs in boardrooms before heads roll. The kind that follows whispered legal briefings and emergency HR meetings where someone finally asks who approved this policy, and someone else answers Sharon didn't, but she warned us. Ben didn't respond. I let the pause stretch, folding the last corner of the towel, smoothing it flat. He finally muttered, you understand this could significantly impact operations. We could face 7 figures in back pay. Penalties, interest, our investors. I cut him off. I'm not involved anymore, I said, still even, still surgical. I didn't file a complaint. I copied a regulator on a clarification request about language your HR department used in my termination. Another beat. I'm sure your legal team can handle it. And just like that, the conversation and the entire illusion of control they'd clung to evaporated. He didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't threaten lawsuits or throw around phrases like career consequences. Because he knew, they all knew, I hadn't burned the building down. I just turned on the inspection light. A polite email, a soft voice, a well-timed CC. That was all it took. And now the CFO of a multimillion-dollar operation was sitting in his glass office, face pale, hands shaking, realizing that the woman they labeled redundant had just rerouted the future of their entire company. With 4 words, one regulator, and no emotion, I hung up, no dramatic click, just a soft tap in silence. Then I poured a glass of wine, clicked on a Danny DeVito asthma video for ambience, and smiled the kind of smile HR can't policy their way out of. Quiet, clean, permanent. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.